Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So I want to talk about, all my camera gear, what's in my camera bag, and just my wedding day flow, what I take to my weddings, what I use, my workflow, but also what I use, for smaller sessions like portraits and families and things like that as well. So let's go ahead and get into it. So the first thing is my camera bodies. I have two camera bodies that I use. And the one I'm recording myself on is on a 5D Canon Mark IV, and my second camera body as of right now is the Canon 5D Mark III. This camera body, the Canon 5D Mark III, is wonderful for, a second camera body. And then primarily I shoot with my Canon 5D Mark IV. And I know the mirrorless cameras are coming out right now, and that's like the next big thing. So I will be eventually upgrading, and I will be shooting with 5D Mark IV as my backup camera, and then the mirrorless is going to be the primary camera. But right now, I'm not in the market for it, and but eventually that will be the upgrade. The first lens that I wanted to talk about that I use for when I'm shooting weddings, this is my top favorite lens. I have it on my camera body all the time, you guys, from beginning to the end of the wedding. And that is my Canon 35mm 1.4 L series lens. So they had two lenses, okay? So this is the L series 2, I believe. So it's the latest 1.4 35mm lens that they came out with. What I really love about this lens is that I can get shots that are just wide enough, but also I can come up close and just get really nice portraits. It's not too wide to where, it will distort the portrait. Is just, for me, honestly, it's like perfect enough to get those close-up portraits. Okay, so let's talk about the other lenses that I use. My second most used lens is the 85mm 1.4 lens. This lens is also more recent. Okay, as you guys can see. This lens is a beautiful portrait lens. It is heavy, you guys. It is not a light lens. Okay, it takes beautiful portraits, especially if you want that bokeh in the background and you want more of that blur. This lens is perfect for that. It is an L series lens, and another cool thing is it has an image stabilizer. This lens is also more recent. They came out with it, I think, just a few years ago. I use this lens for more of the detailed shots and close-up shots. So for example, when I'm shooting a ceremony, I can get those close-up reaction shots, I can get the ring exchange shots, I can get the bows, and then I don't have to be in their face and come up super close to my bride and groom. I can kind of stay afar and get those detailed shots. So usually with this lens, I go ahead and just put it on my second camera body, and then I shoot with 35mm, as my other lens. Okay, so the next lens that I want to use, or that I use, is this one here. This is my Canon 24mm 1.4, also prime lens. Okay, as you can see. The reason why I love this lens is because it is a wider lens. So for example, if you're shooting at a beautiful venue, or you're shooting somewhere where you want more of that, a wider shot, with some scenery, this is perfect for that. Also, what I noticed is sometimes I have venues where like the getting ready rooms are super tight. And sometimes with my 35, it's like I'm having to be more cropped in than I want. So this lens is perfect for that, because I can, still get everybody that I need in the image, and then I'm not feeling like I have to be so back by the wall. Another reason I love this lens is because sometimes when I'm doing family portraits, sometimes same thing. I'm so like, there's maybe not enough space, or, you know, where I'm shooting or there's people around, you know, and I want to get up a little bit closer without having to be standing too far. Now, I know some of you are wondering, like, you just showed me 3 lenses and all of them are prime. Like, how come you're not using any zoom lenses? And my reason for that is there's nothing wrong with using a zoom lens, especially if you are starting out as a photographer or you want that one lens that, you know, you can do it all with. I recommend the 24-70 lens. But the reason why I like my primes is because you can go lower on the aperture. Usually I shoot anywhere from 1.8 to 2.2 for an aperture. And since I'm a natural light photographer, I want to be able to have more light coming in. So that is my main reasoning for, you know, using prime lenses. And also I really do like the looks of more of a blurred background, you know, more of a blur in the background for images rather than super sharp. So those are a couple reasons why I use prime lenses. They are expensive, I'm not gonna lie. So it's like if you're getting every single millimeter, that's a lot of lenses, a lot of investments. So it's something that I gradually, you know, upgrade as I'm growing. The next lens that I don't have that I know I need is a 50 millimeter 1.2. I used to have a 50 millimeter 1.4, but I wanted to really quick mention that lens. You guys, if you really want to invest in the prime lens, I recommend getting the 50 millimeter, either the 35 or the 50 millimeter as your starter lens, because you can really do a lot with those lenses. And the reason why I love the 50 millimeter lens is because it's really all around lens. You can get anything, you know, that you really need. So if you want a wider shot, just get further back. If you want something close up, just get, you know, closer. So I will be investing in a 50 millimeter lens. For now, I don't have that one. For now, in place of that, I use my 35 and my 85 and kind of do some manipulating. But yes, eventually I want to get that lens. So the last lens that I have is this one here. It is my macro lens. Kind of bring it up closer. This lens is the 100 millimeter macro lens 2.8. It does also come with the image stabilizer, which is great. I did bust it a little bit. It's kind of a long story. I was trying to do a shoot, trying to use a wall in my bathroom, and I set my camera down, and then I had like a glass garbage can, and my camera literally fell and it landed like right there, and it banged my lens. I'm glad that it's still like, I'm so glad I didn't damage this lens, because this is not a cheap lens. This lens is $8.99, and I only use this lens really for ring shots, or pretty much for just ring shots, honestly. And sometimes it's not worth getting if you're just needing one lens for that one shot. An alternative lens is the 50 millimeter. I think it's 2.8 macro. And I know that lens is way cheaper. I think it's like under $200. So I recommend looking into that. I do also use this lens for portraits, very rarely. If, for example, I'm maybe shooting like a Catholic wedding or something, and, you know, with Catholic weddings, you can't, you know, go beyond a certain point. They kind of want you on the sidelines. So sometimes I'll use this if my 85 is just not close enough. But usually I find the 85 working just fine. And I know people like invest in like 135 or 70 to 200 because they want to kind of, you know, when they're shooting weddings, or especially during the ceremony, they don't want to be up, you know, closer and like be in people's way. And I personally, I shoot with my 35 and I come up closer if I have to. Like, I'm sorry, I'm a wedding photographer. I want to get the best shots. So I don't really worry about that, as long as I'm not like in one spot the whole time or really like in front of people constantly. Then I've never had really, you know, any complaints. So like I said before, the 100 macro is a beautiful lens to get those beautiful ring shots. And usually I shoot at a 4.0 aperture, because if you shoot at a 2.8 with the ring shot, the ring can be a little bit too blurry, like around the ring. So you want to get it a little bit more in focus, and then you want to blur out like the background, you know, and stuff like that. Okay, so let's talk about all the accessories that I use really quick. The harness, this is what I use. Okay. It's all leather. This is from Holdfast gear. Okay, so I can hang my 2 camera bodies. I love it. It's super comfortable. I think I paid like $220 for it. I know it was between $180 and $220, but it's Holdfast gear. If you subscribe to their like email listing or whatever, they send you like a 10% coupon. But this is what I use. I just got like a brown. I usually wear all black to a wedding, but like I said, I love it. Okay. My flash that I use is this one here. My flash, I use the 580EX Canon flash. I know this is kind of like older a little bit. They did come out with a newer version. I can't remember the number too. It was like 600 something. But yeah, this is the flash that I use, and it's very simple to use. I use on camera flash. I don't use anything off camera as of right now. And I'm not sure that I will, just because I don't like carrying a ton of equipment to my weddings. Off-camera flash is really cool if you're trying to accomplish some really creative stuff. And also the way the lighting works is different too. You get more of like a kind of like light from the side, darker on this side, or you get more of a darker background depending on what you're trying to like accomplish. With the on-camera flash, when you bounce it off the ceiling, you get more of like an even light. So yeah, this is what I use for my flash. And then the diffuser that I use is this right here, and it's magnetic, just goes on my flash. And this is from MagMod. I love these because they don't fall down. I used to use like a Gary Fong, and it would always fall off my flash. Okay, so this is what I use. Another cool thing that I started using more recently is I started to use these like fillers. I think they're called fillers, color fillers or something like that. These actually go on your flash, and let me tell you the reason why I use these. You know, when you're shooting receptions, and probably 80 to 90% of the time the reception is you have like yellow lights everywhere, and you know, you have yellow orange lights. You kind of have that like yellow lighting type of situation. And so what ends up happening when you're bouncing, you know, with your flash, the light that comes from your flash is more of a blue tone. And so what you're doing is you're mixing blue with like yellow or orange. And so what can happen is the skin tones kind of just look off, like they don't look right. And then you're spending a lot more time in like Lightroom trying to tone down the skin tone to get all that orange, you know, off the people. So what this does, okay, when you put it on your flash, it bounces. You're pretty much copying, you know, you're changing the light, the blue light from, you know, that normally bounces from here, and you're bouncing the orange. So you're matching the atmosphere. Okay, so you set it up like that, and then you put your diffuser on. Okay, and so what happens is it takes all that orange off. Okay, so when you're, you know, taking your photos, you're going to see the difference. And I'm going to actually show you some pictures of like before and after too up on the screen so you guys can see for yourself. Totally worth investing. And you do have to change your settings a little bit. Like you have to change your Kelvin mode to like between 34 and 3700. So that's the only thing that you change. Instead of shooting like an auto Kelvin, you just switch your Kelvin mode. I also use this thing too, which is a grid. Okay. And so I use this strictly for when I do sparkler exits. what can happen is when you are trying to, you know, shoot the sparkler, you know, it's darker or whatever, and then when you're, you know, when your bride and groom are coming down, what can happen is when you're flashing on them, the side of like the people can be a little bit overexposed. So the grid is cool, and a lot of people that do off-camera flash do use this. What it'll do is it'll darken like the sidelines, and so you see more of like your bride and groom with the lights, of course, the sparklers or whatever, but it does get rid of like the exposure around. So I do use that for sparkler exits. This is my SD card holder. It's called Hansky, and I got it on Amazon. I don't even know how much they were. They were pretty cheap. But this is where I keep all my SD cards. I use a backup card too, which is the SF card here. And I usually use like the 64 gigs. So these are my backup cards, but primary cards are these here, okay? And that is it. That's all my camera equipment, aside from, you know, Canon batteries. I always get the Canon batteries. I don't get anything else. I just keep it with the brand, because I know I have another brand, but it, like when I put it on my 5D Mark IV, it won't take it. So I usually just take, you know, do the Canons. So yeah, that's everything that I have as far as what I use for my equipment. So I hope that helped you guys to kind of get an idea what lenses you want to invest, what type of like style of photography you want to do. You always want to just try out different things. And before you purchase a lens, I recommend you guys check out borrowlenses.com. And so they're a company that they rent out lenses. And so if I always wanted to try out a lens before I bought it, I always like rented it to make sure that I like it, kind of tested it, and then made my purchase. So I will make sure I link that down below. All right, guys, that's it. If this video was helpful, make sure to like and subscribe. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.